back to the apex. When will this end? All right. Because of this question, I'm going to give a shout out to a proper shout out to our boy, Christopher Graham. Christopher Graham, he do help us a lot. He do send questions in. Every time you see us come out here, all the amazing questions you see or all the segments are all suggested by Christopher Graham. And you can too by joining our Patreon. Please feel free to join our Patreon. We are on Patreon. You could pledge any amount and support the African fighters. We would really appreciate you if you do that. And also, if for any reason you cannot consume our podcast in video, you could consume our podcast in audio form. Maybe when you're working out, taking a run, put us in your ear and we'll make you laugh. We'll make you feel like you're part of a conversation, I promise.
You make you happy
Yeah,
about African
yeah,
fighters.
yeah. All right, guys. Going to go back into it. All right. So, yeah. Christopher Graham says, back to the apex next week. When will this end? Ha. Uh, Amo, I have said this before. The pandemic came with a lot of things, a lot of negatives and a lot of positives. It brought positives for the UFC because they had more people watching them. It was during the pandemic that they had one of their biggest pay-per-views ever in Yas Island, Kamaru Usman versus Masvidal one. That was 1.2 million pay-per-view buys. That is the only UFC pay-per-view that is not McGregor that crossed a million buy in forever. So, and then they had like a growth in their fan base. I would say I started taking UFC serious during the pandemic because I couldn't cut it with WWE and AEW. So that's me personally. So there's a lot of positives that happened with the empty arena events. With they stayed on track, right? But now the issue is they learned and understood that they could actually use their PI for fight nights, and now that has made them lazy in booking fight nights. Fair game, we have started seeing some fight nights are going out in different cities, but it's almost like they just do it small. Apex doesn't give you that energy. It doesn't give you that big fight feel. I believe every fighter growing up trying to become a champion or a superstar in the UFC is not thinking about fighting in a hall like that. What draws them into trying to be a fighter is seeing thousands of people in a packed arena. You hear this from pro wrestlers. Pro wrestlers, when they ask them when did you decide to be a wrestler, they'll be like, in 1990, so. I went and I saw Shawn Michaels versus Bret Hart. That was when I knew this is what I want to do. A lot of fighters will tell you, yes, I saw Anderson Silva and I thought this is what I want to do. I want to have that feel. And the Apex doesn't do that to the fighters. I understand this is going to do well for the UFC pocket because they are not going to be spending too much. But I think it's unfair to the fighters. That is, imagine I bet you there are fighters in the UFC right now that have fought three, four, or even five times. Maybe they came in through the Dana White Contender Series and they fought in the Apex. They have never fought anywhere else but the Apex. How is that fair to them? They don't really get that adrenaline rush of like 1,000 people shouting. I mean 1,000, like thousands of people cheering on. Well, you should understand what I mean. But
But then I'm going to step in here, right?
yeah. I wanna ask you, what do you think about the Apex being used on and on and on and on again?
As much as you have been highlighting the demerits, right, there are also merits on the side of the fighters as well, using the apex. So for example, they're able to better hear advice from their corners, right, and that actually helps to improve the performance of a lot of the fighters, right. So everything that comes with its advantages also has its disadvantages, and of course it's easier for the UFC to schedule these events back to back. It's not easy when you are into logistics. Organizing events is not it's not a child's play, right? And of course this is business here, right? I'm a businessman and I can tell you for free, like, you sell what the people want to buy, you don't sell what you want to sell. So the market wants to buy these fights, and it's easier to package these fights and sell it to the audience from the UFC Apex, and it is what it
Okay,
is.
so here's my argument, counter argument with that. Is it not money? Is it not logistics and money, right? UFC at the right now they are in the most successful era of their time. Like the past year and the past year and the year before that during the pandemic when they started staying in the apex, they've been grossing higher than they've ever. So pre-pandemic, pre-COVID outbreak, they were doing fight nights in big cities, in big arenas, right? What is stopping them now?
Okay,
What is
okay. So,
actually
so,
stopping
so
them?
I'll give you this right from I'm a finance guy, right? So there's something when it comes to financial statements. You have the top line and you have the bottom line. You have the revenue and then you have your costs, right? So
Mm,
sometimes you might have say revenue of 10 million, right? But then in order
mm,
to earn that revenue of 10 million, you might have spent say 8 million in order to
mhm,
earn that 10 million. But then if you are earning say 4 million, or you're spending 1 million to earn that 4 million, it's actually more profitable to you as a company because you're ending up with, a margin of 3 million, right? Whereas instead of, earning 10 million and you're spending 9 million to earn that 10 million. Does it make sense? I hope the math is mathing to you.
I
So
understand what you mean, but
honestly,
here's my thing.
highest
Here's my
profit.
thing. Bigger arena, bigger crowd, more ticket sales, more revenue at the gate.
Yeah, more revenue at the gate, but it costs them a lot of money to put these events together. It does cost them a
Well,
lot of money. So your operating expenses, will come and consume that revenue. So a lot of people just think about the revenue that they're earning, but then they don't think about what has the UFC spent in order to bring this event together. And as a businessman, I'd rather earn
okay.
4 million, right?
Fine, Toby. Let's
And
let's agree
maybe
to
2
disagree.
million
Let's agree to disagree. UFC
and
are being
4 million.
selfish. They refuse to leave that boring
It's
as
business, my
Apex. And I'm
bro.
telling you,
It's
every UFC fighter, even the ones that are using the UFC PI to train their training facility in Vegas, even those guys, they don't want to fight in the Apex. They want to go and fight somewhere.
Yeah.
Uh,
So we need a balance of it. Yeah, you
Okay,
cannot.
let's